then let your right knee fold in towards your chest and hold around your knee for a moment. So perhaps let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then from there, you're going to take that leg up towards the ceiling. And it's really up to you what you do when your leg comes up. So you might want to give your leg a little bit of shake out. You might want to catch around the back of your thigh. You can sort of interlink your fingers around the back of your thigh. You could circle your ankle. You could point your toes and point your heel. So there's a whole range of things you could do to, yeah, just start to feel that you're lengthening out a little bit through the back of the leg. Good. And then from there, just fold that knee back in towards your chest again and keep it there. And then lengthen your left leg out on the floor. And just think about that left leg being sort of quite heavy and relaxed. So you could roll that leg a little bit to the right or to the left, or you could bounce your knee. That's it, good. And then you're going to do the same thing again with the right leg. You're going to take the right leg up towards the ceiling again. And again, you could shake it out, or you could interlink your fingers around the back of your thigh. It's quite nice to stretch into your heel. Maybe point your toes, a bit more circling your ankle. It's also quite nice here to perhaps rock your leg a little bit side to side in the hip joint. So don't make it a huge movement. If your pelvis starts to move a lot, then maybe do a bit less. And it's probably quite nice to be holding onto your leg some way. You know, you can support it with a hand either side. Good. That's nice. And just sort of see how that feels, because we're going to be coming back to a lot of these sort of movements during the class. And then from there, when you're ready, lengthen that leg out on the floor for a moment. So both legs are long. And perhaps just see how the two legs feel. Is there any difference between the legs? And let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then from here, you're going to bend both knees, stand both feet on the floor, and fold your left knee into your chest. And then from there, when you're ready, you're going to take your left leg up towards the ceiling. And you've got all these options. You can shake out the leg. You can interlink your fingers around the back of your thigh, sort of stretch into your heel, point your toes, circle your ankles. So just a little bit of exploring. How does it feel to lengthen out that leg? Good. And perhaps another breath or two with that leg reaching up towards the ceiling. And whenever you're ready, you're going to fold that knee back into your chest. Good. So keep the left knee folded into your chest. Lengthen your right leg out on the floor. Roll the leg a little bit, bounce the knee a little bit. Good. Very nice. And then whenever you're ready, lengthen the left leg back up towards the ceiling. So you can repeat, that's it, left leg back up towards the ceiling. You can repeat the similar movements, so the shaking the leg out, the interlinking your fingers around the back of your thigh, that's it, it's circling the ankle. Very nice. You can do a bit of pointing your toe, pointing your heel. Lovely. You can do a bit of letting your leg rock side to side in the hip joints. That's it. So just support your leg however is comfortable with your hands. It can be quite a small movement, or you can even circle your leg a little bit in your hip joints. Lovely. And when you've had enough of that leg being up, you can lengthen it out on the floor and just lie with two long legs for a moment. See how it feels to lie long. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave. If your lower back's not so happy with your legs long, you can bend your knees whenever you like. Now, Rachel, I have got the back door open, so if you start to feel chilly, do you want me to open the window? Just let me know if it starts to. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And so some of you did this at the beginning. We're going to come back to tilting the knees, or do it for the first time, those of you who are a little later to arrive. Just tilting the knees to the right and to the left. And just seeing how this feels. That's that really sort of familiar, comfortable movement. That's it. Letting the legs tilt from side to side. Just notice as you tilt both knees to the right and to the left, your pelvis is rocking from side to side on the floor. Okay, maybe just settle down in the center now. And you're now just going to move your right leg. So you're going to let your right knee tilt out to the side and then back towards the center. So it's a different sort of movement now. There's less movement of the pelvis. Some of them might be a bit of movement of the pelvis to the right as the knee comes out to the side, but not so much. We'll just do that perhaps once or twice more. Feel how it is to let the knee fall out to the side. Good. Now, you're going to then start to, as your knee comes out to the side, start to press into your left foot and let the left side of your pelvis come away from the floor. That's it, very nice. So sort of to facilitate the movement, yeah. So your knee will travel further now to the right as you press into your left foot and let your pelvis tilt over to the right. Good. And just carry on repeating this a few times. So we've got that movement of the knee outwards. It's this rotation, external rotation in the hip joint, but we're also letting the pelvis help with that movement. We're letting the pelvis tilt to the side. And then what I'd like you to do is have perhaps 2 or 3 breaths, leaving your knee out to the side. And if it doesn't quite reach the floor or isn't comfortable, you could slide a cushion under it. I can't quite see all of you. Are you okay there, Rachel? So just see how it feels to stay there for another breath or 2 with the knee coming out to the side. And then in your own time, come back to the center. Yes, and either fold both knees into your chest or lengthen both legs out on the floor. So whichever you prefer. That's nice, good. And then in your own time, come back to standing both feet on the floor. And let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Feel the weight of your body settled on the ground. And then you're going to move over to letting the left knee come out to the side. And it's going to be very tempting to press into the right foot to start with. Just try and do it a couple of times where you're just letting the knee come out to the side. And maybe the pelvis tilts a little bit towards the left, but you're not adding the pressing of the right foot in yet. And then you can start to add in pressing into the right foot. So you let the pelvis tilt to the left. That's it. Good. Very nice. And just repeat that a few more times. And it's up to you. So on this side, you can either carry on repeating it, or if you want to stay with your knee out to the side, you can do that. So we'll see how it feels. If you're staying with your knee out to the side, just letting that left leg be heavy and keeping nice and sort of planted down into the right foot, so that right side of the pelvis stays away from the ground. And letting a breath come in, letting a breath leave you. Good. And then once more coming back to the center. And again, either lengthening your legs out or folding your knees in. Or a little bit of both, perhaps. Yeah, so it might be nice, yeah, to do that once you've folded your knees into your chest. To do a little bit of rocking side to side across the back of your body. Rachel, I might have to put a little bit of light on. It seems to be very dark. Really dark here now. From here, we're going to roll over onto our side and then come over into cobbler pose. So why don't you all roll onto your side in a minute and just have a couple of quiet breaths on your side. So you don't want to do anything too dramatic at this point. I'll make sure we don't have too much light. Gosh, last time we had Thursday evening yoga, it was a lot lighter. So yes, when you're ready, from being on your side, coming over into cobbler pose. And if you bring yourself to sit, so you're facing the long edge of your mat, because from cobbler pose, we're going to move into pinwheel and then on, even if I should say it, on into pigeon. If that's not too alarming at this point in proceedings. So in cobbler pose, you could just have a couple of breaths. There's various things you can do here. You can do a little bit of sort of bouncing your knees. You could do a little bit of rocking from side to side. And perhaps, yeah, not too much longer. We're going to move on to pinwheel in a moment, but any other things you like. You might like to do these side lengthening ones where you lean into one arm and the other arm comes up and over. That's another possibility. Or you might just be quite happy sitting in cobbler pose for a couple more quiet breaths. So from here, we're going to let one knee come on top of the other knee. And we're going to slide that top leg back. So we come into our lovely familiar pinwheel and we can do a bit of circling here. Very creaky floor for. So circling one way and the other. Again, if you're sort of feeling, oh, my shoulders feel quite stiff today, then it can be quite nice to do the variation where we give ourselves a hug and we look down. And we're sort of then we're doing this great thing where we're working into our hips, releasing our lower back, but we're also letting our shoulders have a little ease out. And then from here, whenever you're ready, you can carry on with a bit more circling if you like, but whenever you're ready, you're going to come into your pinwheel forward bend. So turning to face that knee that's going out to the side, holding the weight of your body down over that leg. And then just that chance to be really heavy, and your shoulders be soft and wide. So just really sense into your shoulders. How do you feel in your upper back? Can you let anything soften a little bit? And perhaps another 2 or 3 cycles of breath there. Just letting the weight of your body settle down through that bent leg down to the ground. And let your breath come in, let your breath leave. So from pinwheel, you're going to walk your hands in towards you because we're going to come on into pigeon pose, which I hope doesn't feel too alarming at this point in the class. So what I'd like you to do is let your knee come back a little bit. So the one you were folded over, let that knee come back a little bit so your thigh lines up more with the long edge of your mat. That's it. And then you can lean your weight over that leg, which frees you up to lengthen your back leg back away from you. And it's up to you here. If you want to keep your weight through your front leg and your pelvis a bit lopsided, that's absolutely fine if that's better for your front knee. Or you can roll your pelvis so your pelvis is as level as possible. And then it's about how can we settle into pigeon pose. So often what I will do to start with is sort of tuck my back toe under and just feel that, oh, can I lengthen my back leg away a little bit more? And even sort of wiggle myself a little bit up and down on the mat. So I probably wouldn't keep my back toe tucked under, but I would definitely start with a bit of that. Try and lengthen out the front of the back leg. And then I might settle in pigeon pose. I might see, okay, how does it feel to go a little bit lower? Maybe to take the forehead down towards the back of the hands, and all the time noticing how does it feel around the pelvis, and also noticing how do the shoulders feel, because we're really probably feeling quite a lot going on in the pelvis and the hips, but we don't want to let the shoulders become really tense. So keep releasing your shoulders, and you can stay low. Or you could come back onto your elbows, and you could also, for some of us, it's helpful to come up onto our hands a little bit and just, maybe that's a good place to be. Maybe it's good to be doing a little bit of rocking from side to side. And wherever you are, just keep sort of checking in with the shoulders. Breathing. As it feels settled. That's very nice. So, very nice. Any little rocking movements are really helpful. Obviously, we've had all this lovely warm weather. We've still got a little bit of humidity, which does help with these things. From here, yes, that's very nice, Rachel. Down on your belly. From here, we're going to roll onto our front leg to come out, and we're going to lengthen our legs out in wide leg sitting. So you can come and lean back on your, not too terrible. Come and lean back on your hands and let your legs lengthen out. You can give your legs a little bit of a roll. So before we do the other side, we'll just have a few breaths here, and it's really up to you. So yeah, if you like this one, you might well be happy to fold forwards a little bit. If it's more challenging, lean back onto your hands. And again, like with everything, there's, a bit of movement can help. So I quite often would do a little bit of swaying from side to side. Yeah, Rachel's doing some nice rolling of her legs. That's also a really good thing to do. We're just trying to encourage the legs to settle down and the body and the spine to feel long and free. And again, yes, if you're someone who likes to fold forwards a little bit here, then have a couple of breaths here. Yes, well, maybe we will have a little visit here after the second side of pigeon. So from here, if you're happy wide-legged, you could have another couple of breaths there. From here, we're coming back to cobbler pose. So if you prefer cobbler pose, then yes, come on into cobbler pose. If you're happy wide-legged, have a couple more breaths and then cobbler pose. So yeah. And when you come to cobbler pose again, just sort of what do you want to do? Do you want to be leaning back and letting your legs be heavy? You could do a little bit of bouncing your knees, or a little bit of rocking from side to side. And then from here, we'll move on into side two of pinwheels. So cobbler pose, letting the top knee come onto the bottom knee, going the other way this time, sliding the top leg back, and coming to some circling. That's it. And remembering, if you like, you can do the version where you give yourself a hug, let your head hang, and focus on this. I was saying shoulders before, but there's also this really nice feeling here of some space in the upper back between the shoulder blades, the back of the neck as well. A little bit, that's it, a little bit more rocking, circling. And then whenever you're ready on this side, you can release your arms and you're turning to face that knee that's going out to the side, and you're folding the weight of your body over your leg. And then you're just letting yourself settle. So this could be a good moment when you're in pinwheel to gather your awareness into your breathing. The key to get into pigeon, Rachel. So yeah. It's so right. It took me a while to realise. It's probably a good sign. We always find myself drifting off yoga. So yeah, in pinwheel, we just have that sort of settling, maybe feeling the movement of our breathing. Letting the shoulders soften. And at least Rachel is keen to get onto pigeon pose, and maybe some of the rest of you are. From pinwheel, whenever you're ready, you can walk your hands in towards you. You can then again let your knee move back a bit. So I always think about bringing my thigh so it's parallel with the long edge of the mat, leaning the weight over that bent leg so that we can release the back leg to lengthen out. And then again, as I was saying on the other side, I quite like to start by tucking my toes under and just this feeling of really lengthening that leg back. Because in the back leg, we're looking to find this sort of opening through the front of the hip joint. And yeah, often our focus is very much on the bent front leg. If we think about that back leg, we really want the thigh and the hip joint to sort of lengthen and open. Good. Any little rocking you want to do. And then it's up to you. There's sort of, you can move around between going down, so your forehead is on the back of your hands or the floor. You can be on your elbows and your forearms. And you can be on your hands. And sometimes it's just good to play around with going into all these different possibilities to see where is most helpful today and most helpful on each side. Good, that's nice. So wherever you are, just letting your shoulders soften, giving the weight of your pelvis very nice down to the ground. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. And whenever you've had enough pigeon, you're going to come back and you're going to lengthen your legs out again in your wide sitting. Yeah, we won't stay here too long this time. It's just we're going to be coming back, seeing how it feels. Yeah, rolling the legs, swaying, folding forwards. Yeah, very nice sound. We've got a little side, we've got some side lengthening going on there. That looks quite nice. Good. And then from here, what we're going to do is come into dog pose and then forward bend and standing. But I'd like you, as long as dog pose feels reasonably comfortable, to stay in dog pose. So don't just make it a transition into standing. Actually give yourself some time in dog pose. And because we've done a fair few things to lengthen the legs out, it might not feel really creaky. So nice big handprints on the floor, tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking yourself up into dog, and then just, yeah, seeing. See what presents itself to you in your body when you arrive in dog pose. And it might be, this feels really nice, in which case you can enjoy it. It might be something like, my legs feel tight, in which case you can bend your legs. And also just, how does your upper back feel? That sort of, place we can be a bit tight between the shoulder blades. And we, bend the knees a bit more, perhaps that area can. And then just a few more breaths, as long as dog pose feels okay. From dog pose, but there's no rush. Again, really, if you're happy in dog, stay in dog. From dog pose, you're going to be coming into a forward bend, and so walking your hands into your feet, and you can have a few breaths in your forward bend. And then we'll be coming up into stand. Yeah, let's have a few breaths in the forward bend, letting the head go, letting the arms go. If your lower back needs any support, bring your elbows to rest on your feet. And whenever you're ready, rolling up into standing. So just let yourself arrive in standing for a moment. And I think the first thing we'll do is just that sort of loose, easy swinging twist and just feel ourselves in movement. And in this, notice just how the whole of your body is moving. So your pelvis is moving and your legs are moving. So pelvis moving, legs moving, arms moving, head moving, feet moving. And we're going to explore a few different twisty things. So sometimes we move the pelvis, sometimes we don't. And we're going to explore a few balances as well. So a couple more times of swinging your arms, and then let's see how we feel in the balance. We'll start with something nice and familiar. So you're going to settle down. So perhaps I would always start by looking at my feet, checking they're there, adjusting the trousers if you need to. So looking at your feet, and then stop looking at your feet. Either find a point to focus on in front of you, or maybe close your eyes for a moment. Perhaps just come into a little bit of swaying from side to side. So we're going to start with tree pose, which I always think it's really familiar. And in its familiarity, hopefully it can be soothing and settling. So depending on how you feel, you can do a mini tree where you bring your foot to your ankle, or you can take your foot further up your thigh, just depending on how you feel this evening. So if you're going to do a mini tree, you can start with your hands in prayer pose and bring one foot to your ankle. If you want to catch your foot, so you just choose whichever leg you want to stand on. If you want to catch your foot, if you want to bring your foot up higher, sorry, then you will need to bring your hands into prayer pose afterwards. And just, yeah, how does it feel? And at this point, don't feel that you're trying to really push yourself to do anything. We want to use tree pose as a sort of a comfort blanket, something that's familiar. We enjoy the familiarity. If you like, you could take your arms up. You don't have to again. You could keep your hands backwards. Just see how that feels. Make sure the shoulders stay soft and relaxed. Let the breath come in. Let the breath leave you. It might be nice then to come back into prayer pose. Maybe resting your thumbs on your breastbone. Just very sort of quiet and relaxed. Breath or two here. And then pop down, have a little shake out. So I always think every time we do tree pose, there's all the other tree poses that we've done before are sort of part of it or within it somehow, which is why it can feel familiar and quietening. So again, side two, however you want to do it on side two, it could be the same, similar to your side one, or you could decide to have your foot higher or lower. Just come onto your second side, and again, this sense of no tree pose. I don't always find it easy, but it is familiar. Have a sense of my body in this position. You then see how it feels to take the arms up, letting the shoulders stay soft. You see if your awareness can travel throughout your body up into your fingertips, down into the footprint on the ground. Hands back in front of us. Rest the thumbs on the breastbone. Good, very nice. Breath come in, let the breath leave. Shake out. So yes, and then again we'll come into another forward bend. So just settling the feet down a little distance apart, and then just keep it very easy and relaxed. You can bend your knees, you can rest your elbows on your thighs, or you can release your arms to the ground. Let your head go. So feel really rooted into your heels. One thing that is helpful to do in your forward bend is look at your toes. And if they're looking white or they're gripping the floor, just see if you can let them lengthen and relax. And settle your weight more into your heels. I always find in the forward bend, it's just a time to let the sort of mind quieten a bit after the balance. So have another breath or two, and then roll back up into standing. Good. Shake out if you want to. Rachel, would you like some water now? Right, just ask me if you would. Okay. So what we're going to do now in standing is, with your feet a little distance apart, make sure you've got enough room on the mat to step 1 foot forwards. So we're going to step 1 foot forwards, and we're going to do this sort of familiar. That's it. Shifting our weight forwards and back, and make sure you've just got a little bit of sideways distance, so you feel steady. And as you do this, I try to find an uncreaky floorboard. As you do this feeling of dropping down into your feet, feeling your feet on the floor, so that perhaps some of the busyness in our minds can just quieten down. And there's something, again, quite sort of steadying and soothing about this. Now, we're going to do a couple of different things from this foot position. So settle down with both feet pointing forwards, and just have a look at your feet. And then bring your hands onto your pelvis, because I'd like you, this first little sequence of things is we're going to try not to try to keep the pelvis facing forwards. And the first thing you're going to do is just swing your arms a bit. So this can feel quite unnatural, that our pelvis might want to move from side to side. Although we're very practiced at this, so probably keep the pelvis facing forwards. Okay, brilliant. And then we're going to see how it feels to come into a balance. And we're going to still keep this feeling of trying to keep the sort of pelvis where it is, I suppose. So bring your hands into prayer pose. And I'm resting my thumbs on my breastbone, because from here, we're going to be shifting our weight into our front foot and bending the front knee, letting the back foot come up in this sort of funny, exaggerated running position. And then you're going to start to reach back behind you with your raised leg. And what you're trying to do as you come into this balance is to keep your pelvis, I suppose, facing the floor, to not let your top, the raised leg hip, be higher than the other hip. Which can be quite challenging. You often don't know. So we're just trying to have this sense of what's our pelvis doing? Is the back of our pelvis staying level? And there might be plenty of other things we're thinking about as well as our pelvis here. So well done, very good. When you come back down, when you've had enough of balancing, you're going to then come back into the same foot position, and you're going to come into a forward bend. So if you bend your front knee, you can bring your forearm onto that front leg, or your forearms, and then you can release down towards the ground if you like. Let your head go, let your arms go. So keep your back leg straight if that's possible. So sinking into your back heel, but your front knee's bent. And just give yourself perhaps 2 or 3 cycles of breath in this forward bend. Nice floppy head, relaxed arms and shoulders, good. And then sinking into your heels, coming up into standing. And when you arrive in standing, shake out. So you obviously know this time what we're doing. I don't know if it makes it easier or harder. Maybe we know where we're going, but we might make us feel more anxious. So step the other foot forwards. And I think there's always with balances that sort of anticipation. We're not 100% in control of what's going to happen. You know, we might have a wobble, but it's fine. We can just find our balance again. So a little bit more shifting your weight forwards and back, and then settling down. Both, and have a look at your feet. Have both feet pointing forwards. Hands on the pelvis. We're just going to have this sense of the pelvis not moving and swinging our arms. So obviously, as we go into the balance, our pelvis tilts forwards, but we're trying to keep the sort of back of the pelvis level with the ground at the moment. Okay. So from here, bring your hands into prayer pose at your breastbone and let your front knee bend. So just sort of, as you start to bend your front knee, start to feel perhaps you're bringing more weight into that foot until we can let the back foot come off the floor, maybe. And then we're going to start reaching the back heel back. So we start to sink into the standing foot. So that knee straightens but doesn't lock. And the back leg straightens as we reach back with our heel. And then we try to have this sense about what's going on with our pelvis. Is the back of our pelvis level? And breathe. What's going on? Yeah, wonderful. Fantastic. And again, when you come back down, step your foot back again and come into that forward bend where your front knee's bent, your back leg straight, and you're resting on that bent front thigh, or you can fold down, let your head go, let your arms go, and give yourself a few breaths. Lovely. come in, let the breath leave. And then sink into your heels, come back up into standing. Now we're going to come to the back of our mat and we're going to go down into a forward bend and dog pose. And in dog pose, I want you to play around with the back of your pelvis, with lifting one leg basically, with the back of your pelvis level and with also rolling your pelvis. So you're not keeping it level. So when you're ready, we can maybe bring our hands into prayer pose. That might be quite nice. So we touch our hands in prayer pose at the back of the mat. Sorry, let the breath come in as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Drop the shoulders away from your ears, exhaling down into your forward bend. So again, you can have a couple of breaths, a few breaths in the forward bend. And then from here, you're going to walk your hands forwards into dog pose. And again, give yourself perhaps at least a couple of breaths to arrive in dog pose before you start doing your one-leg dogs, which is indeed what we're going to do. So you're going to, have a little, once you've arrived in dog, settle down through your hands. How does it feel to take one leg off the floor? And usually when we're doing this, it's actually easier. I find it much harder to try and have my pelvis level. Makes it more comfortable to roll the pelvis. That's it. So just sort of, that's it. You can roll the pelvis, or can you have your back of your pelvis level, like we were trying to do in the last balance? Good. And so just try, well done, Rachel. That's right. So just try on both sides and see how it feels. How does it feel to try and have the back of the pelvis level? How does it feel if you roll your pelvis? So that feeling your pelvis is, the front of your pelvis is sort of turning to one side, which for me always feels much, much nicer in this one-leg dog. Good. Okay. When you've done that on both sides, you just might want to have a couple of quiet breaths in dog with both feet on the floor. And whenever you want to, you're just going to come down. You're going to have a little breather in child pose before we come back into standing for another balance. So that's it. Let's settle down in child. And just have a moment coming to your breath and feeling the movement of your breath in your body. And as we connect with our breathing, it's just that opportunity to let go of tension, soften our bodies, and to connect with this feeling of constant flow within us. So by all means, have another breath or two or three in child. When you're ready, we're going to come back into standing through another dog pose, forward bend, up into standing. So just sort of take your own time in those things. There's no rush. And again, dog pose can be a really lovely place to explore our breath, to have this, I suppose, this sense of oneness with ourselves when we're feeling our body, we're feeling the flow of our breath. So that's it, several breaths in dog, a few breaths in the forward bend. And then eventually make your way back. So we're going to face this way. We're going to come back to that same foot position, but we're going to be thinking now about a balance. We're going to be thinking about half moon balance, where we open our pelvis to the side. And so step 1 foot forwards and just come back to this rocking forwards and back. And so this is something actually I've been playing around with for the last few weeks. It's not usually the way I go into half moon pose, so I just thought we would have a little go with it this evening and see what you think. So I suppose what I'm saying is be prepared to feel wobbly if this is not your familiar way into it. I've felt less wobbly the more I've done it. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is settle down as we were before with your pelvis facing forwards. But what I'd like you to do now is just start to turn towards your back leg and let your pelvis move. Because I think it's quite naturally, if we turn towards our back leg, our pelvis comes along. And if we're letting our pelvis turn towards our back leg, possibly our back foot also wants to turn out. So you could do that, yeah? You could let your back foot turn out. Good. And then you're going to stay turned towards your back leg. So your sort of pelvis is opening to the side like we were in dog, and you're going to take your arms wide. And I suppose I have this image in my mind now that my body is like this big sail, and I'm trying to stay really sort of wide and this, yeah. And then from here, I'm just starting to bring my weight. I might be bringing that back foot come up and down a bit, starting to bring my weight onto my bent front leg. Keeping this image of myself like this big sail, tilting forwards, coming into maybe. And it might be that you want to try that a couple of times. That's the other thing that, yeah. You might want to come back. You can just settle your feet down, take your arms again, wide again. So I'm starting with my front knee bent, just like we did with the last balance, and then sort of transferring my weight onto that bent knee and trying to keep this sense of sort of spacious width, this sort of sail-like feeling through the arms. Very nice. Good. Very nice. Very nice. So we'll have a little shake out. We'll try the same thing on the other side. So actually, it's probably quite good if I turn my back on you, isn't it? So you're going to step the other foot forwards, and we're going to come back to the same thing of shifting the weight forwards and back first of all, and just trying to sort of drop down into the feet and settle. There's always this bit of anticipation when we're coming into a balance. How's it going to go? Let's try to start by feeling settled at least. And then if we settle our feet down and then start just this turning towards the back leg and letting our pelvis turn. And if we let our pelvis turn, then maybe we feel that we want to let that back foot turn out a bit as well. So it's up to you. So we end up in this position where our pelvis is facing to the side a bit, like it was in the one-leg dog. And we can bend the front knee, and we can bring the arms up to shoulder height. Good. So we've got this image. I mean, you may have another image that works for you. For me, it's this sort of feeling of being this big sail, and then bringing my weight onto that bent front leg. I'm just trying to keep that sort of width across the arms, pelvis facing to the side. Good. So we try to control that. Impressed. I'm very impressed with everyone's balance. It's really lovely. If you want to try again, you don't have to, but you might like to. So you come back, you just find a foot position that feels comfy, bending the front knee, back leg straight, this sort of width across the arms, and then transferring the weight into that front leg. Controlled Not always. Now descent. Come out, shake out. So there's lots of different ways into half moon, and maybe we'll look at some other ways in future weeks. Also, we do it every week. But I think it's one that I haven't done so much for the last year and a half or so. Let's now just come into a wide forward bend. So Maria, your favourite. You could just do a quiet forward bend. You could do a bit of walking your hands from side to side, or even a little bit of a twist. So I'll sort of leave it up to you. I know when I was practicing earlier after the half moon, I just wanted to be quite quiet here. But yes, exactly, Kayla, you could be bending one knee, you could be bending the other. Just sort of come into the wide forward bend and just, ask your body, what would it like to do? Make sure your weight stays well in your heels. And what's the other thing? Yeah, sort of through the outer edges of your feet. It's often quite easy when we take our feet wide to roll onto our inner arches a bit. Wherever you are in your forward bend, your wide forward bend, just perhaps another breath or two. And then making your way back into sand. Raising your feet a bit down, just sort of shake out of arms and legs. And I just wanted you to come and settle in standing, and we just come to our breathing in standing. So come back to looking down at your feet a little distance apart, and then stop looking at your feet. You could do a little bit of swaying from side to side. You could bring your hands onto the front of your body. So I tend to bring one hand to my belly and one hand to my chest. You could bring your hands to your low side ribs, both hands on your belly. You could have your hands on your belly, your eyes closed. You could be swaying a bit. And maybe little by little start to make the swaying less and less until you settle down. And see how it feels just to settle in standing with your breathing. Maybe for 2 or 3 cycles of breath, feeling the breath flowing in, the breath flowing out. So again, coming back to the sense of feeling the constant flow of our breath through our body. And we're going to come down one last time through a forward bend and dog pose and into child. And I'd like you to just try and keep this sort of quiet focus on your breathing in the different movements. So I think we'll just, at the back of the mat, we'll come down into child, into a forward bend. Just in your forward bend, can you gather your attention into your breathing and just that same sort of quiet attention, sort of back tissue. Same sort of feeling the quiet flow of your breath, and then down through dog pose. You have this same feeling of being with ourselves, feeling the flow of our breath within our body. And then, of course, settling into child pose. Full child pose, leaving the flow of the breath. Now from child pose, Rachel, you might like to do this sooner rather than later. We're going to be coming onto our belly. So if you're really happy in child pose, stay in child pose for a few more breaths. But if you know you're happier lying on your belly, you can come into it. Try it. So whenever you like, you can move from child onto your belly. And when you arrive on your belly, just give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle from side to side. And once you've wiggled your pelvis, and so on the belly, I would probably be lying with one hand on top of the other and my forehead or cheek on my hands. So when you've had a bit of a wiggle of the pelvis, then see how it feels to settle and breathe on your belly. And then you could come to the other movement we quite often do in our bellies, where you bend your knees, take the soles of your feet towards the ceiling. And start to let your feet tilt. Yes, very nice feet there, Emma. Let your feet, I mean, it's really lovely. Let your feet tilt to the right and to the left. That's it, great. Sam, I'm sure there's lovely feet there as well. I just can't see them. Okay, I can see. So it's very nice. I always like this one, so everyone's feet waving. So do that a few times. And then you can let your legs come back onto the floor and you can have another few quiet breaths. That's it. I can see some of you enjoying your legs going from side to side, which is really nice. And if you're lying on your belly, you're going to be moving over onto your back. But again, if you quite like being on your belly, you can stay there a little bit longer. If you're happier on your back, then move onto your back sooner. It's quite nice to keep your head where it is, but equally I sort of recognise sometimes we want to put our head up the other end, because I know that I do. So just be however you're comfortable on your back. Just arrive on your back and see how it feels. Good. So on your back, just maybe rest your hands on the front of your body, have a few quiet breaths, and then I'm going to suggest a few things. I'm not suggesting you do them all, but I'll suggest a few things and you can do one or two of them. So you sort of pick what most appeals to you. So this one for you. So happy baby is one thing you could do. Another thing is bridge pose. We've done quite a lot of forward bends, so it might feel quite nice to open out the front of your body in bridge pose. The third one is to do a floor twist by folding your knees into your chest and then taking your knees down to one side and then the other. So you could quite easily combine that with happy baby, or you could do bridge pose and then happy baby. So yeah, you've just got a few minutes to see what you'd like to do. And if you want to do nothing and just lie quietly, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, that's nice. So just enjoying wherever you are. And if you do a movement and then you want to try something else, yes, you've got these three things. If there's something else that really springs to mind that isn't one of the things I've mentioned, that's absolutely fine within reason. Probably no handstand at this point. So of course, if you're doing a floor twist, make sure you do both sides of the floor twist. Just, you've got maybe another minute or two to carry on with whatever you're doing. And when you've finished doing all of the movements you'd like to do, there's no rush, there's still time to finish up a little bit more. We're going to finish with some lying down and breathing. I mean, if you feel happier to sit, you are very welcome to sit. So if you wanted to put anything warm on, I'll get a blanket. Rachel, would you like a blanket? So yes, so just make sure you're going to be comfortable and warm. And that's on Vera, Michaela, socks going on. So if you do put a blanket on, just make sure you've got your arms free, because we're going to do a little breathing exercise where we touch our thumbs to each of our fingers in turn to help us stay present with our breathing. Okay. So I think you're all lying down. If anyone is sitting, you can rest the backs of your hands on your thighs. Otherwise, if you're lying down, you're going to settle down with your arms on the floor beside you and your palms facing up. Arms on the floor. That's it. Arms on the floor, but your palms facing up. Sorry. Arms on the floor, palms facing up. So your arms are resting down comfortably. And then you're going to start by touching your thumb onto your index finger. And you're going to let a breath come in, and you're going to let a breath leave. And then you're going to touch your thumb onto your middle finger, and you're going to let a breath come in, and you're going to let a breath leave. And then touching your thumb onto your ring finger, and let a breath come in, let the breath leave. And then thumb onto your little finger, and let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And in your own time, you're going to go back up through the fingers, so back onto the ring finger, and so on. Receiving an inhalation, and then letting the out breath go. Keeping your attention with your breathing, but just very sort of relaxed. You're not forcing your breath to be longer or shorter than it is. And then when you've had a breath with your thumb on your index fingers, you're just going to let that go. And you could bring your hands onto your belly if you like, or keep your arms on the floor. And you could come first of all to just feeling the flow of A few cycles of breath through your body. We've still got our attention focused in on our breathing. It's really now just the sensation of the breath, the filling and the emptying. Then you could bring your attention to the front of your body and starting with your face, letting the whole of the front of your body soften, so letting the face soften. The point between the eyebrows, let that place feel wide and relaxed. And the cheeks, the jaw, the forehead, down through the throat, the front of the chest, down through the belly, front of the legs, letting the whole of the front of the body feel soft, relaxed. And coming to the back of the body and being aware of the points of the back of your body in contact with the ground. So the back of the head. And you might feel you want to let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. If you do so, then settling it down. And feeling the backs of the shoulders resting on the ground. Letting your awareness travel down through the back of your body. So maybe some of your vertebrae touch the floor, some don't. Some of your rib cage touches the floor, some doesn't. Down through the lower back where there may be space between your body and the floor. Down to the back of the pelvis where you can notice how the right side of the pelvis touches the floor and how the left side of the pelvis touches the floor. And then we're all the way down through the length of your legs, to the heels if your legs are long, or to the whole footprint on the floor if your knees are bent. Let your awareness expand to sensing your skin. That's the air on your skin. And then maybe beyond you to sounds, light, the presence of other people or animals. I'm going to ring singing bowl 3 times in a moment. So just carry on resting, breathing. So, thank you, everyone. You don't have to get up, you can carry on lying down. Dark now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really nice to see you.
Sarah.
Bye. Bye-bye. See you next week. So, Kayla, will I see you next week or you're away?
No, I'm away. So I'm away for the next 2 Thursdays.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, have a great time. Wow.
Thank you. Have a good couple of weeks.
Yeah, you take care. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Sarah, that was wonderful.
Oh, so nice.
Yes, it was great. Thank you.
So nice to be back again.
It's really nice. Oh, so Otto's dived in onto.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.